Hello, everyone, and welcome to C-Suite Talks. We speak with industry leaders, introducing you to some of the most interesting people and businesses today. We are focused on women, money, and power, as well as diversity in all areas. Welcome to C-Suite Talks. I'm Beth Hilbing, co-CEO of C-Suite.
And I'm Dianne Gubin, co CEO with Beth. And this week, we are so happy to be speaking with Dr. Tonya M. Evans. Dr. Tonya is a professor and global leader in tech, IP, and crypto innovation. She is a global leader, an accomplished academic and administrator, a world renowned speaker with over 20 years of experience in law, innovation, academia, and entrepreneurship. Tanya also owns the coaching and webinar company Advantage Evans Academy, and she is host of the Tech Intersect podcast. Welcome to C-Suite Talks.
Yay.
Thank you so much. This is so fantastic. And I love every topic that you focus on because you had me at inclusion and empowerment for women. So this is a fantastic conversation. So thank you.
So
So,
tell us a little bit about your background and how you got to be Dr. Tonya Evans and what led you to your specialty in your field.
I started, my parents are fantastic people. And then, in one generation, they really each changed their lives from, certainly not being middle class, but really trying to put two and two together in their respective families. My mom grew up to be a patent attorney, often the first or only in the room as a woman and as a Black woman. My father, Susan Evans, my father, Dr. Richard Evans, he um, kind of changed his circumstances from extreme poverty to getting the opportunity to go to Howard University and then going through ROTC, going into their program in order to become a doctor. Served his time there honorably and left the service as a lieutenant colonel of the Air Force and continued to practice law, practice medicine. And most recently, he was supposed to retire and ended up being a state representative in Maine, as often the
wow,
only,
fabulous.
right, the first Black president of the Maine Medical Association. So I give you that as context for the folks and the expectations that were set in my home, but in a loving way, not kind of like back-breaking way, but leading by example. That led me, actually, I was a very successful athlete early in my career. My parents were all doing sciencey things, and I was playing tennis and writing poems. And I ended up being awarded a full tennis scholarship to Northwestern University. I played, this is a fun fact, I don't think I shared this, that I played tennis professionally for 4 years between graduating from Northwestern before going to Howard University School of Law. Mostly I played, it's kind of the equivalent of AAA baseball, always trying to earn enough points to get into the majors. In 1993, I did get into the qualifying rounds of the US Open. And even though I lost the week of qualifying, I made more money that week than I had made like on the whole tour for the months leading up to the US Open.
Wow.
So I've had this very non-traditional path, ultimately going to law school, graduating with honors from Howard University School of Law, clerking in the Third Circuit, working in big law, running, kicking and screaming away from big law. It's one thing, I mean, we can flesh this out a little bit later. It's one thing to have a great pedigree or the right CV and know that you are um, more than qualified to be in the room, but that doesn't make it the right room for you.
Oh, right.
And, so that's been a series of activities leading to academia. I'm a writer, speaker, teacher. And kind of the second act in teaching, and finally, is finding my lane in financial technology, the crypto asset space, and in blockchain. That happened in 2017, and that really propelled me to take a deep dive and ultimately to become an expert in the area.
So did you get involved in 2017? Is that when you first got involved in crypto?
Yes,
Yes,
right at the
and
beginning.
actually,
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because just given my high risk aversion, I know people cannot tell this from what I actually do, but I am highly risk adverse and I'm licensed to practice law in 4 states and I have no intention of losing any of my licenses.
Oh
And I
my
heard
gosh,
about
it took
this,
forever to get them.
right? under any circumstances, no internet magic money. I wasn't into it at the time. What I was fascinated about was the underlying technology, blockchain, and it's so jargony and can be dense. And I hope through our conversation to demystify a lot of it and right size the terms to make it more accessible for women. Um, but I'm always intellectually curious, and as an educator, I knew that I had to learn enough about the next iteration of the internet, which is really, we've moved from the information age and um, creativity and the exchange of creativity to really the internet of value, moving value like we used to move MP3 files, for example. And it was all built on open source software. So as a copyright, I don't think I mentioned this, but primarily a copyright um, and technology lawyer, I needed to figure out what it meant to build open source software protocols that were really driving the engine of the future economy, certainly of work and creativity and wealth. But once you start learning a little bit, you like fall down this rabbit hole because there's so much jargon you have to unpack to figure out what things mean. And that led me to learn enough about crypto to start to make a difference in my life personally so I could understand the point.
Oh my gosh. So, Tanya, before we get to, we have a bunch of questions about crypto to ask you.
Hmm.
However, yesterday you had the honor of being on the Hill with the House Financial Services Subcommittee on digital assets, financial technology, and you talked about fintech and financial inclusion. So tell us what that was like to testify on the Hill and what your topic was.
This was an extraordinary opportunity. I've done some things at the state level, but it's a whole new bag of tricks when you're, going to the nation's capital and sit before the likes of, Congressman French Hill and Ranking Member Lynch of this particular subcommittee. Ranking Member Maxine Waters comes in to ask questions. It's a whole different vibe. I assure you. And I'm seasoned, but they almost broke me. They almost broke me. It was an extraordinary opportunity to sit before such an august body. This is a subcommittee of the House Financial Services Committee that was evaluating the regulatory landscape of cryptocurrencies. There is debate and a bit of um, turf wars, I think is the best way to describe it, in the alphabet soup of regulators in Washington, from the Securities and Exchange Commission to the Commodity Futures Trading Commission as well. So you have the FTC, you have the SEC, you have Treasury and the Federal Reserve. There is a lot going on. And because crypto assets are really upending and disintermediating a heavily regulated industry like finance, folks on the Hill are trying to figure out how best to regulate crypto assets. And so I was invited there to kind of walk through and provide my idea as an academic on a nonpartisan basis, what some steps are that Congress can take in order to work with regulators for the right solution. So that's basically what we're talking about. What I was most interested in highlighting, and I didn't really get enough of an opportunity to do so, is really the missed opportunity to address the negative impact really on the future of financial inclusion and financial literacy in systemically marginalized populations. I was using Black and Brown communities as the example of kind of being locked out of tech and locked out of finance, but having the opportunity through crypto assets that don't require that they know who you are necessarily. There are ways to identify, and we can talk about that later. But it doesn't matter if you are what color you are, what gender, or whether you're non-gender conforming or your sexual orientation. I'm a Black queer woman. It doesn't matter. Either you have an asset or you don't, and there are no impediments to participation other than education. That's very empowering. And so we didn't get a chance to explore that at the hearing. And so it's my intention to continue to have that conversation in spaces like this and in others.
So how would you do that financial inclusion for the underserved? It's such a huge issue. How would you even start?
A lot, yeah, a lot of it starts even just understanding the nature of crypto and the reason that the first successful cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. And I'll say even through Advantage Evans Academy, I don't sway. First of all, I don't sell cryptocurrency. Please don't send me your money. I have no idea what forex trading is. Please don't write me. Do not DM me. And if someone DMs you thinking they're me, it's not me. I assure you. See,
Really? Is a DM something different from like a text?
Yes.
yes, a direct
I
message
know.
within a social
I know.
media
I know.
app. So, no, but somebody might be watching now and they
Right.
don't know, right?
Right.
So, absolutely. The reason I even mentioned it is I have a ton of imposters. Anytime you work in the area of financial freedom or financial transformation, there are all manner of imposters and scammers out there. I spend a lot of time educating people on how to engage with crypto assets safely, and we could talk about that a bit later. But the idea of where people begin is just understanding the language and the landscape, and the reason that cryptocurrencies, the first being Bitcoin, was even created to begin with. What on earth it has to do with blockchain technology? Like, what's the point, right? A lot of people say we have a dollar. What's wrong with a dollar? Nothing's wrong with a dollar. I love dollars. You can send me those, but not for cryptocurrency. But we have to understand and kind of take a step back for um, I'll use this example. Minority communities who are trying to send remittances or sending payments to other countries. Someone tries to send, what through Western Union or some other mechanism, because that touch point goes through so many regulators, banks, central, Federal Reserve, et cetera. It takes a lot of time. It costs a lot of money, and you don't know if you're going to get it on the other side. There's a lot of money. There's small amount remittances, 100, $250. People sending money back home to families, for example. That is extremely costly. It's extremely costly to be poor around the world, even in America. There are people in the United States who are unbanked or underbanked, and some of them might be sitting next to you at work. Maybe they had, in their 20s, a slew of bad checks. Now they're grown up, but they can't get a bank account. So they're left to payday lending and uh, short-term
Where they
money
might
costs a lot of
default.
money. Yeah,
It
that's very
does.
costly, and it keeps this cycle of poverty that people can't break out of. So fast forward to another opportunity through cryptocurrency, which cryptocurrency is a bit of a misnomer because crypto assets are actually taxed as a capital asset. So can it be used for money? Sure. You give me a Bitcoin, I don't know, give you something worth $20,000 because that's what Bitcoin approximately is worth today. But it also, as a capital asset, you certainly appreciates, or could, you'd have losses. And so in that way, it not only various types of crypto not only can present themselves as a unit of account and a medium of exchange, but in some cases with a fixed supply can even serve as like a store of value. That's what they describe Bitcoin as, because it's capped at 21 million and already 19 million Bitcoin are already in circulation. So it has some like supply demand pressures in addition to possibly serving as a currency.
Yeah, and I can see it getting very complicated, once it's all regulated with capital gains. And, now they're looking at taxing future gains and all that, unrealized gains, right? And all
Right.
that. So
Hmm.
it's kind of got a minefield. So um, I think a lot of people have been very nervous about it all because it's hard to understand, right?
Hmm.
And so I think a lot of people have been nervous
And to
about
set up
It's
into use. So let's decode this space. Let's talk a little bit about it. So,
sure.
within this, how do we separate the fact from the fiction? Fiction, and you're saying it has no value. So, kind of go down there. Tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm glad that you asked um, about the value first, because oftentimes people say it's just magic money, it's not backed by anything. Where does it get its value? And I think it's an important and a good question, but that question in and of itself suggests that most of us, including me, before really understanding the nature of money, um, on a broader perspective, before focusing on crypto, is just what is the dollar backed by?
Well, the U.S. government.
And right, the
it. Oh,
full faith and credit of the government, but
Right.
it's
Right.
but
Right.
not much else.
But
Right,
look
not
how
much
much
else.
we're in debt today. So
That part,
Well,
right?
yeah,
And this right, and this begs the question. It's when you start to think
Right, for
about it,
sure. Right.
decades ago, we used to be on the global
It used to
reserves. We
be,
are
we
no
would say
longer.
we had gold reserves, right? Right.
Right. No,
Yeah.
and for decades we've not. It's literally based because we said so until we don't pay our
Right.
debts, right? And so when you begin to unpack that, like money is a social contract. It is an agreement. If it's not backed, if everybody went to the bank today to ask for their money, everybody's not getting their money back. We
Wait,
have
that was Silicon
fractional
Valley
reserve.
Bank today.
Absolutely. And that happens
Right?
all under the watchful eyes of regulators as well.
Yes,
so,
yes.
And we're all
so,
Greece. We're all like
right.
Greece, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. The rise and the fall of every great nation is often around things of like this kind of pivotal moment. And I'm not like
Right.
telling everybody to go out and get a tinfoil hat and say, right? It's the end of days. It's the end of days. I mean, it might be, but we don't know, right? But
Right.
until that day
Right.
comes, we do want to have a better appreciation for how empowering it could be. Not to replace the dollar. I'm not in it for that purpose. I don't think that's going to happen in the short term, whatever short term means, but having alternative methods of exchange, which actually we've always had throughout the millennia. Salt, sugar, cowrie shells, the unfortunate, not just unfortunate, but the horrific scourge of the enslaved, where people are actually exchanged as value. We have this whole history throughout the world about different means of transferring. What is different is when the government got into the money business, and money generally was, oftentimes new governments would borrow from wealthy people within that community to engage in war, right? The first Bank of England was to get money in order to fund wars, and money and government, they're inextricably linked. And it's a very powerful center to focus on government issued money, which is called fiat currency, and having a difference, particularly if you're in an environment, let's say not in the United States, but somewhere else where it's illegal for a woman to own property or to hold her own money. This could be another way to empower.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I want to say I'm one
Right.
of your classes.
Oh, we can
For
arrange that.
sure. For sure. Oh my gosh. So isn't crypto only for criminals? I mean, isn't that one of the myths out there? Right? Because it's unregulated,
Well, it
like
didn't
it should
help. It
be.
didn't help with the latest episode of what just went down, but
Yeah.
Oh, and let's talk about that too. In kind
Yeah,
of plain
let's do
English,
that.
I'm happy to
Right.
do that. And I'm assuming you're referring to Sam Bankman-Fried.
yeah, yes,
I
yes.
have much to say, but I'll
Yeah.
keep it tight for you all on this.
Yeah, please.
As it relates to crime, so first this myth, and what we're talking about now comes from my forthcoming book, Digital Money Demystified. Comes out this fall, where I go through the top 10 myths in crypto to bust the myths or right size them, because sometimes there's a kernel of truth in everything, right? So I don't throw everything out, but I want to right size and just provide the facts. And as it relates to crime, this is a really important one because um, it's the number one myth that I hear constantly. In 2022, the crypto asset ecosystem certainly experienced all of the crises that we're about to talk about with Sam Bankman-Fried, and it certainly had a domino effect throughout the entire ecosystem. But oftentimes that's used to support this narrative that all crypto assets, and there are over 22,700 different types, right? All of them can't be a scam, but also it's for crime and it's a scam. That's not true. It's counterproductive, and it keeps people from learning in a safe and secure way. The reality is that a 2022 report on crypto crime, it's an annual report that comes out from a company called Chainalysis. It found that transactions involving illicit addresses represented just 0.15% of cryptocurrency transactions, and 0.24% in 2022. So it's less than 1% is what I'm trying to say of all
Okay.
cryptocurrency use is regulated to criminals. And that's because it's a terrible place to hide money when the public record, which is the blockchain, the record of transactions and balances, is public facing. And it's the easiest way to track money. So it's a terrible place to
All
do criminal
22,000
activity.
different funds, all those different
Yes,
variations.
yep, all public source, excuse me, open source and public facing. so that you can see in real time. I can't see in real time what's happening with my money at a bank, but I can go to the Bitcoin ledger and actually see as things are going. I don't know who the person is. People are identified pseudonymously by their wallet address in the same way that you might mail me something, right, to a specific address. And that is it's just a fallacy. It's false. I understand why people are concerned because there are a lot of scammers, but the number one currency used in scams is still the almighty dollar, and that's just a fact.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's good to
Ooh.
know.
So can't
Yeah,
someone like
and
cyber hack it and like take all your crypto from a
You
bank,
there
could.
is
I mean,
right?
the well, let's talk about where crypto assets are held.
Yeah.
When and let's use FTX as the example.
Mm-hmm.
FTX, owned by Sam Bankman-Fried, was a centralized exchange, meaning the he and his cronies and cohorts would have people transfer their assets into the exchange for the purpose of exchanging one crypto asset for another. Exchanges aren't banks, but they encourage people to also leave their assets. Sometimes it's fiat, sometimes other coins or tokens on their platform. Once it's on their platform, you don't have any control over it. What Sam is accused of doing is using the money that was held and supposed to be yielding 8% interest. Like you can't go wrong, 8% interest. Just leave your money on the exchange. He took people's money and then leveraged it with his related company, Alameda Research, in these very risky transactions that were propped up. What he did was illegal if proven guilty. What he is accused of doing is fraud in the highest order. What he did not do was use crypto to facilitate and perpetrate a fraud. And so I've been very frustrated with some of the coverage because people think that's a crypto problem. It's not a crypto problem. That's an Enron problem. That's a WorldCom problem, right? That's a Lehman Brothers problem. That's a Bernie Madoff problem. It's not a crypto problem. This is a
Mm.
convenient resource that was used, but we didn't say there was something wrong with the dollar when Enron and Madoff made off with
right,
the money. So I want to
right, right.
that's how I right size that conversation.
It's the evil. It's the mind that created that problem. Yeah.
That's
Okay.
correct. And the
Right,
lies,
right.
right? People were leaving their money there to earn interest. What he didn't tell them is he was going to take that and invest it in
Exactly.
his
Yeah.
sham company. And it was always, at some point,
So
the
sad.
jig is up, right? There you go.
So sad. So
Woo-hoo-hoo.
sad.
Mhm.
So you're coming out with a book that's very interesting. I'm
Yes,
very
tell us
happy.
about your book.
Yeah. Tell us about
Yes.
your book. Yeah, and your
So
journey in that book.
the journey is something else. This is actually my fifth book, but the last one I did was like 13 years ago on completely different subjects. I told you I was an intellectual property lawyer by training. So that was when I was working with authors and doing literary law, intellectual property stuff. So I know what it means to sit down and write a book. And as an egghead academic, I'm constantly writing long law review articles that very few people read. But I like that people will actually read this book and reach
You
more than my
Google well.
egghead colleagues, right? Thank you, right? So, good, bad, or otherwise. So I wanted to always find a way, not just through my paid courses at Advantage Evans and or through webinars where you get to maybe I get to a couple of hundred people, but to really start to get the information out, the information people need before they get into crypto. So what the book is not is a book about investment or reading charts or candles. This is the book that people will read before they take the next step to go from cash to crypto. So it's just all of the common myths. It basically is a book that's basically like frequently asked questions. And I get to provide data, fun facts, my own personal experience, because I assure you, I have made every mistake. I want to accelerate or compress, I should say, the time it takes for the person, the next woman, the next Black person, the next queer person who wants to get in and doesn't know where to look. We have carnival barkers on one side saying all crypto all the time. We have the naysayers, mostly from the legacy financial system, who see a customer service problem and they're like, no crypto, none of the time, even though they're quietly giving access to their high net worth individuals. That's a story we could talk about today too. But it's the idea of what information, the basic steps. I have this 10-point plan of what you do in order, but before even what to do, it's what to know.
Okay.
Ooh,
That's very
especially when
good.
you have so many flavors, right? So
It's so
thank you.
many. Yes,
So
Well,
many
we would
absolutely.
love to
2000
invite you
plus.
back in the fall. when you're getting
Please.
your book released, and
Yes.
to definitely to
Yes.
talk about all of that and to
Absolutely.
educate the audience at the national level for sure. I think that would be good.
Absolutely.
But
Right.
tell
And
us
tell us
tell
what are
the
you teaching?
audience,
Yeah.
yeah,
Go on, Beth.
yeah. I was just going to say, tell the audience how they can reach you. What's the best way to get a hold of you and learn more about your programs and everything?
Right. And what do you learn in your
Awesome.
programs if we sign up for your academy?
Got it. So you could easily go to advantageevans.com. I have developed over the last few years a few different opportunities for folks to learn when they just want to get in and figure out the basics and next steps. So one is about small group coaching. Two, certainly providing in-person opportunities, sometimes through a summit, to have high touch, high engagement, high impact opportunities to learn at a premium level, and also content, online content where I have self-guided modules. But the best way to engage is to engage in a cohort where we go through 12 weeks. I go through one module a week. We meet, and you are connecting with like-minded people to learn everything from what is a crypto wallet, how was the first type of cryptocurrency created, what are the different types, how to engage safely with decentralized finance. And as the lawyer in me always teaches about crypto tax, the good, bad, and the ugly, and I've been on all sides of that, I assure you, and also crypto estate planning. We cannot actually create the type of generational wealth that we deserve if at our death it doesn't, pass on properly and efficiently to the next generation. And because of the nature of custodying crypto assets, your family might not know what the heck is going on. And so all that you would be doing during your life would be lost without effective crypto estate planning. So that's an important part of it as well. And then how to get set up, how to vet coins and exchanges, and how to get in and to succeed in the future of work and wealth.
I
That's
think
very
we should bring this
exciting.
to C-suite, Beth.
I know exactly.
I
That
know
would be
we're going to
great.
have a whole other conversation with you. So, but for now,
Absolutely.
thank you, Dr. Tonya Evans, and tell us where your website.
AdvantageEvans.com, and you will find also my podcast. I have a weekly podcast called Tech Intersect, and you can get all of that information and access to the pod at AdvantageEvans.com.
Terrific. So, thank you to our sponsors: Google, the law firm of Paul Hastings; City National Bank, the law firm of Manette; IPG Interpublic Group, which are advertising, media, and PR companies; and actually my company, Amplify Professional Services. We provide executive search and IT consulting. So thank you for listening. Beth, do you want to tell us
Yeah,
how to subscribe?
yeah, sure. Yeah, so hit the subscribe button on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. Leave us a review. Very good. 5 stars, of course. Follow us on social media: LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. This is we'll live stream on LinkedIn. If you'd like to have more information on C Suite, it's www.csweet.org, or you can email me directly at beth@csuite.org. And thank you for listening with us today. And thank you, Professor Tanya.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Dr. Tonya.